You're on a research boat off the coast of Iceland. The water is choppy, gray, the kind of cold that gets into your bones before you even touch it. For the past hour, you've been watching a pod of orcas, killer whales, doing what they do best, cruising, hunting, completely in control. These are the apex predators of every ocean on Earth. Creatures that hunt great white sharks for sport. Animals that coordinate like a military unit to drag a blue whale calf away from its mother.
They kidnap the calf.
Nothing in the ocean tells an orca what to do. Then a researcher on the bow goes quiet. She's listening through a hydrophone, an underwater microphone, and she's hearing something that doesn't belong. High-pitched whistling, getting louder, and then it happens. The orcas go silent, every single one, and then they turn and swim away, fast. What just showed up? A great white? A sperm whale? Some deep-sea creature that's never been cataloged? No. Pilot whales. A species that maxes out at around 20 feet long, roughly half the size of a large orca. Animals that orcas could theoretically eat for breakfast. And the killer whales ran. This isn't a one-off weird day on the water. Researchers have now documented this behavior across Norway, Iceland, Spain, and Australia, sometimes with pilot whale pods of over 200 animals charging at orcas in tight formation, porpoising through the waves like a living black wall. And every time, the orcas leave. So what is actually going on here? Why are the most feared predators on the planet scared of something smaller than them? Here's what makes this so strange. Orcas aren't scared of things. They're the animal that put the words apex predator on the map. They've been documented killing blue whales, the largest animals ever to exist on Earth. They hunt great white sharks and eat their livers. In essentially every ocean on the planet, other marine animals avoid orcas. Full stop. So the question isn't just, why do orcas avoid pilot whales? The real question is, what does it mean when the ocean's top predator develops a consistent avoidance response to something smaller than it? And is it actually fear, or is something far more complicated going on? The answer has to do with numbers, noise, intelligence, and an evolutionary instinct that might be hardwired so deep that even orcas can't override it. Let's break it down. First, let's talk about what a pilot whale actually is, because most people have no idea. Pilot whales are not technically whales, despite the name. They're the second largest member of the dolphin family, right behind orcas. A big male can reach about 20 feet and weigh over 5,000 pounds. They're blunt-headed, jet black, and built like a stocky defensive lineman. But the really important thing about pilot whales isn't their size, it's their numbers. Orca pods typically run 5 to 15 individuals. That's a tight, highly coordinated family unit, which is exactly what makes them so effective as hunters. Pilot whales, on the other hand, operate in pods that constantly merge with other pods until you have what's called a superpod. We're talking 100, 200, sometimes over 400 animals moving as one coordinated group. In Bremer Bay, Australia, researchers watched over 200 pilot whales porpoise toward a group of orcas in tight V formation. The orcas were gone within minutes. Think about that math. A pod of 10 orcas is one of the most effective predatory units in the natural world. But 10 against 200 aggressively charging animals? Even for an orca, that's a terrible risk calculation. It's not that any individual pilot whale is a match for an individual orca. It's that 200 pilot whales moving as one organism is a different category of threat entirely. Here's where it gets really interesting. Pilot whales seem to know this. When orcas are detected nearby, pilot pods tighten their formation, close ranks around their calves, and move as one. It's the same logic as a murmuration of starlings. The group becomes something harder to attack than the sum of its parts. Here's where this gets even stranger. The interaction between pilot whales and orcas isn't just physical. It's acoustic, and researchers are starting to think that sound might actually be the primary weapon in this entire dynamic. In a 2022 study published in Scientific Reports, researchers broadcast pilot whale sounds at orcas equipped with tracking tags. The results were clear. The orcas showed a strong avoidance response. Fast, directed movement away from the sound, combined with tighter group cohesion and complete silence. No visual contact, no physical threat, just the audio signature of pilot whales, and the orcas moved away. But here's the twist. It also works in reverse. Pilot whales are actually attracted to orca sounds, which is the opposite of what you'd expect from a species that's potentially prey. Researchers believe pilot whales use orca vocalizations as an early warning system. When they hear orcas in the area, they swim toward the sound to intercept and assess the threat before the orcas can gain any element of surprise. They're actively hunting the hunter. There's even evidence from pilot whale populations off southern Australia that they've learned to mimic orca calls, using the sound signature of their biggest threat to scare off other orca pods from their feeding grounds. An animal that can learn to imitate its predator well enough to drive that predator away. Let that sink in, and remember, in a superpod of 200, every single one of those animals is vocalizing simultaneously. Researchers who've been on the water during these encounters describe it as overwhelming. A wall of clicks, whistles, and shrieks filling the water in every direction. For orcas that rely on precise acoustic communication to coordinate hunts, that kind of disruption isn't just annoying, it's operationally crippling. Now here's the part that scientists are still genuinely arguing about. Because here's the thing, in most documented cases, the orcas being chased by pilot whales aren't doing anything threatening. They're fish-eating orcas. The Icelandic populations that researchers have studied primarily eat herring. They don't hunt marine mammals. They're not a real threat to pilot whales or their calves. And yet the pilot whales come charging in anyway. Researchers have proposed two main explanations. The first is resource competition. Both species need productive feeding grounds, and the pilot whales might be defending territory. The problem is that their diets barely overlap. Icelandic orcas eat herring, pilot whales eat squid. They're not actually competing for the same meal. The second theory is what biologists call anti-predator mobbing behavior. This is actually common in the animal kingdom. Meerkats mob snakes, crows mob hawks, small birds dive bomb perched owls until they fly away. Not because they can kill the owl, but because they rob it of the element of surprise. The logic: make yourself visible to the predator, let it know that you know it's there, and you take away its biggest advantage. The twist here is that these specific orcas don't regularly eat pilot whales. So why would pilot whales respond to fish eaters the same way they'd respond to a genuine predator? The answer might be cultural memory. In other parts of the world, Peru, the Caribbean, parts of the Pacific, transient orcas absolutely do hunt smaller cetaceans, including pilot whales. And researchers believe pilot whales carry an inherited behavioral response to orca vocalizations that fires regardless of which orca type they're hearing. They can't tell a fish-eating Icelandic orca from a marine mammal-hunting transient orca by sound alone. So they treat every orca as a potential threat. Every time, it's evolution being overcautious. And that overcaution has turned a prey animal into something that effectively intimidates its own predator. So here's what's actually happening when pilot whales send orcas running. It's not that pilot whales are physically tougher than orcas. One-on-one, an orca wins that fight. But the ocean doesn't run on one-on-one fights. It runs on risk calculation. And for an orca, the math on approaching a superpod of 200 aggressive pilot whales, all vocalizing at full volume, closing ranks, charging in formation, simply doesn't add up. The potential reward doesn't justify the cost of getting mobbed, injured, and acoustically overwhelmed by hundreds of animals that have been evolutionarily designed for exactly this scenario. Orcas are too intelligent to take that bet. And that's actually the key insight. Orcas don't flee from pilot whales because they're frightened in a simple, instinctive way. They flee because they're smart enough to recognize a bad deal and walk away from it. That's not weakness. That's the same cognitive sophistication that makes them the most effective predators on the planet. Meanwhile, pilot whales have evolved an entire behavioral toolkit to manage exactly this threat. Superpod formation, acoustic mimicry, proactive mobbing, and it's worked so well that the predator now treats them as something to avoid rather than hunt. That's one of the more remarkable things in ocean ecology, a prey species that turned its own fear response into a deterrent so effective it changed the behavior of its predator. There's one final twist to this story that nobody fully understands yet. In March 2023, off the coast of western Iceland, a female orca was spotted traveling with a newborn pilot whale calf. No other pilot whales anywhere in sight, just this orcapod, the same species pilot whales mob on site, apparently caring for a pilot whale baby. Scientists don't know what happened. Did the orcapod find an orphaned calf? Did they intercept it from a pilot whale pod? Did the calf somehow imprint on the wrong species? This is happening between two species that actively harass and avoid each other. And yet here's this calf, swimming alongside them, like it belongs there. It's a reminder that the labels we put on ocean animals, apex predator, prey species, threat, competitor, are human categories. The ocean is far more complex than that. Pilot whales mob orcas. Orcas adopt pilot whale calves. And somewhere off Iceland, a researcher is still sitting on a boat with a hydrophone, listening for the whistling that makes killer whales go quiet. We're still figuring out what it all means. If you want to go deeper on ocean intelligence, check out our next video on sperm whales, the species with the largest brain ever to exist on Earth, and what they actually do with it.